Congressman, thank you for the question. The cost of war weighs very heavily upon me and my colleagues here, especially for those of us who have experienced and seen the cost of war firsthand.
Okay.
My own personal and political views, as I mentioned earlier.
Y'all, we are breaking news in a little bit of an unconventional space. I am currently at a PF Chang's at the airport, heading on my way to a flight right now. But this news is so important that it could not wait till I landed. So, I want to hop on here with Matt, lots of noise, sorry about that, and say that Donald Trump just saw the latest resignation from his cabinet. His Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, is leaving the administration, and she has offered up a reason that I do not actually believe, because we know what the real reason is. Donald Trump's war on Iran, and specifically Tulsi Gabbard's inability to lie about Donald Trump's war on Iran. She has tried and failed several times in Congress, and it is the reason that she has been boxed out of this administration. We have seen report after report that Donald Trump has wanted Tulsi Gabbard gone. We are going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we get into the reason that Tulsi Gabbard has offered up for her resignation, and I should say another woman in Donald Trump's administration getting booted out, it seems like that's kind of the pattern that we've seen. But before we get to that reason, I want to start with the actual one. Again, there is always a bad congressional hearing that comes before these people leave the administration. For Tulsi Gabbard, it was this moment with Senator John Fetterman.
Under the law, you are responsible for providing national intelligence to the president, correct?
Yes.
And to the heads of executive branch departments and agencies, yes?
Yes.
And to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs and senior military commanders?
Across the IC, yes.
And to the Senate and the House and relevant committees, correct?
Yes.
And the law states that the national intelligence you provide to Congress, quote, should be timely, objective, and independent of political considerations, correct?
Yes.
And you noted in your opening statement you're here fulfilling a statutory responsibility and that your testimony, quote, represents the IC's assessment of threats,
That's right.
Correct? That opening statement, as submitted to the committee in advance of this hearing, stated that as a result of last summer's airstrikes, quote, Iran's nuclear enrichment program was obliterated, end quote, correct?
That's right.
And is that in fact the assessment of the intelligence community?
Yes.
So the assessment of the intelligence community is that Iran's nuclear enrichment program was obliterated by last summer's airstrikes?
Yes.
And the opening statement you submitted to the committee last night also stated, quote, there has been no effort since then to try to rebuild their enrichment capability, end quote, correct?
That's right.
And that's the assessment of the intelligence community.
Yes.
The White House stated on March 1st of this year that this war was launched and was, quote, a military campaign to eliminate the imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime, end quote. That's a statement from the White House. Quote, the imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime. Was it the assessment of the intelligence community that there was an imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime?
The intelligence community assessed that Iran maintained the intention to rebuild and to continue to grow their nuclear enrichment capability.
Was it the assessment of the intelligence community that there was a, quote, imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime, yes or no?
Senator, the only person who can determine what is and is not an imminent threat is the president.
False.
And
this is the
determination.
worldwide threats hearing where you present to Congress national intelligence, timely, objective, and independent of political considerations. You've stated today that the intelligence community's assessment is that Iran's nuclear enrichment program was obliterated and that, quote, there had been no efforts since then to try to rebuild their enrichment capability. Was it the intelligence community's assessment that nevertheless, despite this obliteration, there was a, quote, imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime? Yes or no?
It is not the intelligence community's responsibility to determine what is and is not an imminent threat.
Okay.
That is up to the
Here's
president
the problem.
based on a volume
No,
of information
it is precisely,
that he receives.
it is precisely your responsibility to determine what constitutes a threat to the United States. This is the worldwide threats hearing.
Like I said at the beginning of this video, she couldn't get through these hearings with a straight face. She couldn't tell her lie. It was never going to come off as if she believed what she was saying. Tulsi Gabbard has also been talking about Iran and was one of those kind of fake against the neocon new MAGA people. It's the same shtick that JD Vance was butchering and no one bought it. And it was part of the reason that Donald Trump was so worried once he was moving toward a war on Iran about Tulsi being in his administration. And so what we're seeing Gabbard there, and she just wouldn't answer. She couldn't answer. And it was never actually going to land. And Donald Trump needed everyone to be on board as much as possible, and that is the reason that Tulsi has been getting pushed out and has now all come to a head with her resignation. I want to get into it. Breaking: Tulsi Gabbard resigns from Trump's cabinet. Fox reports Tulsi Gabbard is reportedly resigning as Donald Trump's Director of National Intelligence amid her husband's battle with an extremely rare form of bone cancer. Fox News Digital first reported on Friday. The exclusive report came from Fox and added that Gabbard notified Donald Trump during a meeting in the Oval Office Friday that her last day at ODNI is expected to be June 30th. Fox obtained Gabbard's resignation letter to Trump, which said she was deeply grateful for the trust placed in her and for the opportunity to lead the office of the Director of National Intelligence for the last year and a half. Unfortunately, I must submit my resignation effective June 30th, 2026. My husband Abraham has recently been diagnosed with an extremely rare form of bone cancer, she wrote in the letter. Now, this is the answer that Tulsi Gabbard is offering up, and I just really can't buy it. These people are so power hungry and deluded from reality that Donald Trump yesterday said he wasn't going to his son's wedding. I don't know what Tulsi Gabbard's relationship with her husband or partner is. I don't know. I just can't really get on board with this right now. I just can't get on board with the idea that Tulsi is leaving this administration for any other reason than the fact that it has been extensively reported again and again and again that Donald Trump doesn't trust her and that he wants her out of the administration. She's just not good at this. Again, these resignations always come after some disastrous congressional hearing, and we saw those exact same moments that had Pam Bondi kicked out of the administration, that had Kristi Noem kicked out of the administration the last time only a few short weeks ago. We saw Tulsi Gabbard in front of Congress answer questions like this one by Mark Kelly about whether or not the Strait of Hormuz is open. And again, Donald Trump demands loyalty, which Gabbard tried to offer up, but also to be competent on TV and in front of Congress. She just wasn't. That's the reason she's gone.
Director Gabbard, you tweeted yesterday that President Trump concluded there was an imminent threat and made a decision to attack Iran after carefully reviewing all of the information before him. I think the country deserves to know what the information was. I'm going to ask a series of questions and just want a yes or no. We don't need any explanation, just yes or no, starting with, were you asked, I'm not asking if you did brief this, were you asked to brief on whether Iran would close the Strait of Hormuz?
I'm not going to comment on what the president did or didn't ask me on any topic.
I'm not asking if you briefed it. I'm just asking if there was a request
I understand
by the White
that.
House. Director Ratcliffe, were you asked to brief on whether Iran would close the Strait of Hormuz?
The briefings to the president and the White House typically don't come at the request of the White House. So typically when we get intelligence that we want the president to be aware of, the intelligence community brings that to the president.
Did you produce the analysis for the Straits of Hormuz?
There has been and continues to be analysis with respect to that.
Were you asked to brief on how our adversaries and allies would respond to the war in Iran? I imagine I'll get the same answer. So it's just to point out here, it's challenging to forget about actually what was in the brief for a second. We're having a hard time finding out not only if you briefed the president on something, but even if the White House asked if they could be briefed on something or if analysis was produced. So I just want to point out here, this is about 6 days.
Can I comment on
Yes.
that?
Yes.
I go back to the point. It's the same approach that we took to the prior operations, which to your credit, Senator, you have praised the intelligence and military communities in Operation Midnight Hammer and Operation Absolute Resolve. It's the same approach and the same professionals in terms of how they approached this particular operation.
We're trying to figure out if the president knew what the downside was of the Strait of Hormuz being closed. And I'm having a hard time finding out whether the White House asked or whether there was a brief, whether the president knew. Did he know this was going to happen? Or did he just disregard?
Again, I feel like a broken record saying this, but it's all just about who is good and who is bad on TV. Donald Trump tried to build a telegenic Fox News occupied cabinet because he thought that Pete Hegseth's shtick would work, that Sean Duffy's shtick would work. You know, Tulsi Gabbard spent plenty of time on podcasts. He thought it would be convincing and it just hasn't been. It hasn't worked. When you give people impossible lies to tell, of course they're not really going to land. And so no, Tulsi can't convince us that as oil prices spike, the Strait of Hormuz is wide open and everything is going so great for dear leader. In the same way that she couldn't make the case that Donald Trump had broken the law and defied the Constitution by launching this illegitimate and illegal war. Another reason this clip shows why she was booted from the administration.
Mr. Chairman, Director Gabbard, we've known each other for a long time. We were both elected to Congress in 2012 and served together for a while. I may not have always agreed with your positions, but I respected the consistency of some of your positions. Director Gabbard, following the January 3rd, 2020 drone strike that killed Qasem Soleimani, you gave a speech on the House floor 6 days later, on January 9th, 2020. In this speech that is currently in the congressional record and available for anyone to view, you stated, quote, President Trump has committed an illegal and unconstitutional act of war, pushing our nation headlong into a war with Iran without any authorization from Congress. A war that would be so costly and devastating, it would make our wars in Iraq and Afghanistan look like a picnic. On February 28, 2026, the Trump administration, under which you are the president's principal intelligence advisor, launched an illegal and unconstitutional act of war, pushing our nation headlong into a war with Iran without any authorization from Congress. This war has already been costly and devastating. 13 American service members have lost their lives, including Chief Warrant Officer Robert Marsden from my home of Sacramento, California. And approximately 200 service members have been wounded. The Pentagon reported that the first 6 days of Operation Epic Fury cost $11.3 billion. That averages almost $2 billion per day. That was the first 6 days, and now we're in the 19th day of this war. That's ballooned into a regional conflict, putting the lives of Americans and our allies throughout the Middle East in danger. Director Gabbard, do you still believe that strikes against Iran that don't have congressional authorization constitute an illegal and unconstitutional act of war?
Congressman, thank you for the question. The cost of war weighs very heavily upon me and my colleagues here, especially for those of us who have experienced and seen the cost of war firsthand.
Okay.
My own personal and political views, as I mentioned earlier, I was asked and required by Congress and by the President in this role as the Director of National Intelligence to check those views at the door to ensure that the intelligence assessments are not colored by my personal views.
Director
and that's
Gabbard,
exactly what I am responsible to deliver.
Do you still believe that war with Iran would be so costly and devastating that it would make our wars in Iraq and Afghanistan look like a picnic?
Once again, in this role, it is essential that I do not allow any of my personal views on any issues to color or bias the intelligence reporting that we deliver to you and to the President.
It was always going to be this. It was always going to be Tulsi on the outs. Not just because of her previous feelings and statements about a war on Iran, but because of her inability to articulate the lies that Donald Trump needs everyone to push. So, another Trump administration official is gone. And it is no surprise as this administration falls apart. I will say again, sorry for the unusual location. Shout out to PF Chang's for allowing me to shoot here. Maybe I should have done that to block some of the bad lighting. It's okay though, we're going to get through it. And if you want to support the work that we're doing and maybe stick around for more breaking news, who knows? But if you want to stick around for that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, turn your notifications on. Keep on fighting y'all, don't let them silence you. And until next time, I'll see you.